Hi everyone, and welcome to the fifth episode of the Definitive Guide to CAT. And this is going to be possibly one of the most important videos of the series, and the title is How to Prepare for the CAT. So let's begin.
To book a free one-on-one MBA counseling online or at any IMS center, check out the link in the description box or the pinned comment below.
Now, in today's video, we are going to cover these points. So we'll talk about the sectional strategy. So we're going to talk about individual sections starting from VARC, then DILR, and then QA as to how do you prepare for each of these sections. I'll be focusing on different set of students. So how do you prepare as somebody who is taking CAT for the very first time, or if it is your second or third attempt, then what's the difference in terms of your preparation. We'll also talk about students versus working professionals, so how to prepare. And we'll also cover the different programs that are available. So how do you prepare if you're planning to join, let's say, classroom versus live online, or a self-learning program, or a test series, and who should be joining which of these programs. So all of that is going to be covered in the video. I hope you will watch it till the very end. So let's start. Now, the first thing is going to be the general prep tips, and why this is important, whether you're a first timer or you're taking CAT for the second or third time. It's always important to know how to be a good student, and that is what we're going to cover here. So the first thing that I'm going to suggest you is whenever you go for, let's say, a classroom, and you may be an IMS student, you may not be an IMS student, doesn't matter. Uh, if you're planning to join a classroom or a live online program, you will be attending some sort of a session. Now, before you attend the session, do some homework, which means it could be watching, say, pre-class concept videos, and a lot of these terms you will find that I'm going to use are specific to IMS, but again, depending on where you are enrolled, there will be some material that you can go through before you attend the live or the classroom session. So it could be, say, doing your pre-class work in the form of a pre-class quiz, or watching concept videos, or going through the theory books that you have. And this will ensure that you have some sort of background before you attend a particular topic. Then once you're done with the session, and this is important because it will help you to figure out if you're able to apply whatever you have studied. So it could be doing, say, practice exercises, it could be doing, say, some sort of benchmarking test, could be doing some problem solving, anything that is related to the topic that you have covered. So after the classroom or the live online session is done, make sure that you solve more questions based on that particular topic so that you're able to retain it better. The third thing is going to be revision. So all of us, when we read something or when we learn something, over a period of time, we tend to forget it. And that is why on a periodic basis, make sure that you're revising the topics that you've studied. And this could be, let's say, every 3 weeks, you're going to revise something, or you can follow spaced repetition principles, wherein you revise something very quickly. For example, today I studied, within the next 7 days, I'll revise it again. Then I will increase that gap to, say, 14 days, 21 days, and so on. Make notes for reference. So it's very important that you make your own notes. A lot of students keep asking somebody else. So they'll ask somebody that, hey, why don't you give me your notes? But please don't do that. So make your own notes. Let's say you're studying a quant topic. Write down all the formulae at one place so that whenever you are revising, you can just go through these formulae, and that's the reference material for you. Because once you start solving more and more questions, you will realize that it is practically impossible to go through all the questions that you have done, and that's going to take humongous amount of time, clearly something that you don't have. So make sure that you have your own formula book or notes that you could be making, let's say, even for VRC and for DILR. And very, very important that you stay organized. What I mean by that is, again, links very closely to this making your own notes thing that we spoke about, but having everything organized at different places. So let's say making notes for your VRC, DLR, or let's say bookmarking some of the questions that you have in your dashboard and stuff like that. So just staying a little bit organized will help you even in terms of your planning, right? So we had one particular video which spoke about the timeline. So just creating the timeline also and then sticking to the plan that you have created, all of those are super essential skills that will be required if you're planning to crack the CAT. And then derive more from the available content rather than trying to run behind and collecting more sort of material, right? So a lot of students do that. So they will ask somebody, hey, why don't you give me notes of, let's say, some other coaching institute, or let's say they'll buy, say, 2-3 books from the market, or they will go for some books containing past papers and all of that. You don't have to do a lot of things. you can have one or two sources and just do them really, really well rather than trying to run behind multiple sources. So, and this applies to everybody. Now, if you're an IMS student, for example, you have a lot of stuff which is available in the form of the courseware that is given to you, the My IMS access that you have, which contains everything starting from your pre-class work, class exercise, practice exercise, benchmarking test, your master classes, your past CAT papers, everything is at one place. So just stick to that rather than trying to run behind more material, right? And that's not going to help anybody. So these are some general tips that I wanted to start with. Now let's move to the first section. And VRC is one area where it's very, very crucial that you read as much as you can. So the only way to prepare for VRC is to fall in love with reading, I would say, right? And whether you like it or not, that's what you will have to do. The first thing is to evaluate where you stand at this point of time, how good your English is. And when I say how good your English is, I'm not talking about how well you communicate, how's your spoken English and all of that. It's just your ability to read a text that is given to you and understand fundamentally what is happening in the text and then answer questions based on it. That is what comprehension stands for. So are you understanding what you are reading? Now, comprehension gets better because with practice, obviously, but you should also have a reasonable vocabulary, though that is not explicitly tested on the CAT. You should have a reasonable speed as well, and these are some of the things that we'll speak about. But are you able to read what you are you able to understand what you are reading? That's the core of the entire thing. And if you think of the kind of questions that are asked, say summary questions or even parajumble questions out of context, all of these are fundamentally linked to how good your comprehension is. Okay, that is why that's the first focus. So read as much as you can, and I would say read variety of things. So don't keep reading one specific type of stuff. For example, if I like sports, every time I go to say the sports section of the newspaper and just read about sports. That's not the idea. You should be able to read anything and everything. It could be starting from say philosophy to psychology, from geography to history, anything, any subject that you can take or think of, you should be able to read it. So variety, sources and difficulty. These are the three things to focus on. Read different kinds of stuff from different sources and varying difficulty. So one day you might be reading something which is very easy to understand. Let's say something related to how mobile phones work, for example. The next day you might be reading something which is extremely difficult as to, let's say, particular psychology passage, which something that you may not be comfortable with. So read variety of things and difficult things as well. Approximately how many questions to do? Now, there is no unique answer to this, right, as to how many questions you should be solving and how many RCs you should be doing. But generally, if you're somebody who is doing about 2 RCs per day, and this you do it over extended period of time, roughly about 500 RCs if you're able to do before you take the CAT, that's a good enough exposure, I would say. The more the merrier, obviously, but we also have to factor in the reality and the constraints of life. So you may not be able to do a lot of RCs, but about 500 RCs plus whatever mock tests that you take, past CAT papers that you solve, that is additional. Beyond that, if you're able to do 500 RCs, I think that's good enough. Then for verbal ability questions, master the method first. So for parajumbles, summary, out of context, etc. For each of these types, practice enough questions to get better at how to solve these questions. So parajumbles, for example, you will learn over a period of time that there are tricks to solve. The tricks come in the form of, let's say, understanding how the pronouns are being used or what sort of connectors you are able to spot and so on. So master the method first, and you don't have to do verbal questions every single day. So it's not necessary that you should be doing, let's say, 2 questions of summary, 2 of parajumbles and so on every single day. That's not required, though you can always do it. But I would say you can have blocks. So wherein you say, okay, fine, today I'm just going to do parajumbles, and then you destroy parajumble questions, let's say 25, 30, 50 questions, one after the other, and that's about it, right? So you can do that. So it's unlike RC, for example, you don't have to have like a per day target. As long as during the week you're able to do, I would say around 30, 40, 50 questions of verbal, I would say that's fair enough. You don't have to do more. Vocabulary, as I mentioned, not explicitly tested on the CAT, right? So that's why you don't have to by heart a lot of words to get good at English as such, or cracking the CAT. So understand what our objective is. See, if the objective is to learn the language and improve our vocabulary, then there's no end to it. But our objective is to crack the test. Now, to crack the test, do we need a lot of words? The answer is no. But of course, if your vocab is good, you will be able to read faster, you will be able to get the contextual meaning much better, and that is why vocab is important. You may have to by heart some of the words initially, maybe about 500, 600 words to get comfortable, but otherwise just mugging up word list does not prove to be very useful for the cat. So anybody who has done well on the cat, they will tell you that just random mugging up words is not the best strategy. It may work for say something like a GRE, but does not work very well for cat. The better thing to do is to read more, and whatever words you come across that are difficult, you note those down, try to guess contextual meaning and all of that, and then try to use those words in sentences in day-to-day conversation. That is how you will retain words for a longer period of time. Reading speed again is another overrated aspect, I would say. If you're able to read at a pace which is comfortable to you and you're able to understand what you're reading, it's good enough. Over a period of time, it improves. The more you read, your vocabulary, your reading speed, all of those things will start improving. So don't get too fixated on the reading speed early on. That's not required. Read slow to read better. What I mean by that is you read at a pace which is comfortable to you so that you're able to get what you're reading rather than trying to read something very fast, and then by the time you read the 10th sentence, you have forgotten what was the first sentence, right? That should not happen. And avoid under preparation and overconfidence. What is under preparation? People think that what is there to prepare, right? I mean, they will not prepare VRC because it's just English. And that also is overconfidence in a way that, hey, I'm able to speak English, I'm able to write in English, I'm able to read English. So what's the requirement for me to study, right? But VRC is a very tricky area. There's a lot of finer understanding that is required to get better at VRC. So from the study perspective, you will have to read a lot, you will have to do a lot of RCs and VA practice to get better at it. So it's not going to naturally happen. Of course, people have different level of comfort. Some people might be very, very good at verbal, in which case your effort goes down, but that doesn't mean that you don't do it. So you will still have to do, maybe your time distribution will differ. Maybe you do more of QA and less of VA as preparation, but it doesn't mean that you will not prepare anything for in VRC. Go for the test and will be able to crack it. That's not going to happen. Okay. That brings us to the next section, which is DILR. Now DILR, again, extremely tricky section of the CAT wherein there is no syllabus, it's just a limited set of things that have been tested in the past. So the first thing would be to, and that leads to a confusion. So a lot of people don't know what exactly to prepare. Now you'll have to master some skills, and that is going to be just the basic calculations. If I give you anything, you should be able to calculate, not saying exact calculation, but just the ballpark. And then mastering arithmetic. So arithmetic in the sense averages, percentages, ratio, profit loss discount. These are some of the extremely essential topics to get better at data interpretation. So anything that is going to have, let's say, a tabular information or something in the form of graphs and all of that, mostly will deal with some sort of number calculations. So get better at numbers and arithmetic and in general calculations. Those are the first skills that you need to develop. About 2 to 3 sets if you do daily, and I'm again looking at extended period of time, so say about 240 to 50 days, 8 months roughly. If you do that much, right, it's good enough, right? Because you will end up doing a lot of sets. I would say about 500 set exposure is good enough for most of the students. However, if you want to do more, you can always do more. Okay, so don't get limited by the number that you see here. Of course, the more you do it, the better it is, but it may not be necessary for everybody. Then every time, whenever you are studying the DILR section, right, you're doing sets at home or in class, what you should do is try and figure out whether you will do it if it is asked on the test. And this is where the ABC approach comes into picture. That is it something that you will do right now? Is it something that you will do it later? Or you will not do it, right? So the ABC approach, which is basically classifying, is it like an A category set or a B category or a C category set, right? So do it now, do it later, or don't do it. That doesn't mean that you don't solve it in practice, okay? So if you, let's say, come across a set and you think, oh, it's a C category set, because you're practicing, you should still solve it. So that then you know, okay, that maybe this is something that I need to stay away from if it is asked on the test. But that understanding is what you need to develop. So don't think that, oh, it's a C category set, I'm not going to do it, right? It doesn't work like that. You'll have to practice difficult ones to sort of appreciate them as well and know that this is what I'm not supposed to do in the actual test. Very important for DILR is to increase your natural aptitude. See, all of us have a basic natural aptitude, and even as kids, you must have discovered that you have some sort of aptitude. So if I give you, let's say, like a jigsaw puzzle, right? Most people will be able to kind of place it. Or if I give you, let's say, some sort of a puzzle where, let's say, a particular rat has to go to a piece of cheese, you will be able to draw a path in which the rat can go. So solving logic puzzles, and especially in the form of Sudoku, Kakuro, Kenken, anything that improves your natural aptitude, ability to recognize patterns, ability to predict numbers, eliminate things that are not going to happen and stuff like that. So case writing, these are the things that you need to improve on. And this is natural aptitude. You can improve it. It will take some time. So not everybody will be able to get better at it. But I would say if you increase natural aptitude, it will have impact on how you solve the DILR sets. Then remembering approaches of classic sets. Now what classic sets are? Sets that repeatedly keep coming, whether in CAT or in some of the other tests. For example, 2 set when, 3 set when, or 4 set when diagrams, right? How do you solve them? Tournament, for example, if it is a round robin format, then how do you solve it? Or let's say something like a binary logic, truth teller, liar kind of a thing. So you will have these classic sets wherein you can remember approaches that, okay, this is how we are supposed to solve them. You will always encounter something that you may have previously not seen, and that's the whole part of learning. So a lot of times students have this thing and they'll say, so we have done class exercises, right? But when I go for the test, maybe it's a mock test or it's a section test, I am not able to solve. But you're not able to solve also because you may not have encountered a set like that previously. So when you encounter a new set, you should be able to recognize that this is completely new. I may not be able to solve it, but then learn how to solve it so that next time when you encounter a set like that, you will be able to do it. So save or record really challenging sets. This is very important. You can put it, let's say, in a file. You can just note it down in your notebook. You can do whatever, but just note it somewhere that, hey, this is a tricky one. This is the way to solve it. Mostly if it appears in the test, I'm not going to do it, but at least I know that, okay, this is how it should be done. So that's for DILR. Overall effort wise, 2 to 3 sets per day is good enough for most of the candidates, and doesn't matter when you have started your preparation. And there are enough sources that are available, especially for IMS students. Within MyMS, there are enough number of sets that are available. If you exhaust them, of course your courseware is there, and then the past CAT papers is obviously a gold standard for it. Then comes the third section, which is Quant. Now with Quant, firstly understand that there are 5 major areas. You have numbers, arithmetic, algebra, geometry, and modern math. You have to be good at, out of these 5 areas, to crack the CAT, you have to be good at minimum 3 areas. Okay, so mastery in minimum 3 areas is essential. Out of these 3, one has to be arithmetic. I mean, you can't say that, okay, I'm not good at arithmetic and I'm going to do very well on the CAT, considering in the last several years, if you see, arithmetic has been the most dominant section of the test. So if you want to crack the CAT, you have to be good at arithmetic. Now, in addition to arithmetic, you can decide which other 2 areas you want to be good at, and don't skip anything. So don't think just because I've written mastery in minimum 3 areas doesn't mean that I will from day one decide that I'm going to drop modern math. That's a very bad strategy. So from day one of your preparation, you say, okay, fine, I'm going to do all 5 areas, but out of 5, these 3 are my comfort zones, or these 3 are my really strong areas. If you give me anything from these areas, I'll be able to handle it. The other 2, it's more like a backup, that, okay, what if suddenly very difficult questions come from, say, algebra, which is my strength, and then I decide that, okay, I'm not going to do it. Maybe I have fail safe in the form of, let's say, permutation combination questions. So that is why, or it may happen that there are easy questions from P and C. Now, if you haven't done that topic, you'll not be able to do even easy questions. So good strategy is to do everything well in the beginning and then develop really strong areas in 2, 3, 4 areas out of the 5 areas that are available. How many questions to solve? Again, this is something that a lot of students keep asking. I would say if you're doing about 20 or more questions per day, again, extended period of time, let's say around 250 days if you think of, that's a sizable number, correct? So you, in one day you can do maybe 30 questions, you can do 40 questions also. Some days you might have enough time to do, let's say, 50. The next day you don't have time, so you do only 10 questions. But on average, you have done 30 questions, which is still a good number. So Regarding the time that you should be spending, see, though in the beginning when you are just learning a topic, you should not be thinking too much of the time that you're taking. I would still say that you try and restrict yourself to about 90 minutes of effort if you're doing 20 questions. If you're doing say 30 questions, obviously that can go to say 120 minutes or so, considering about an average time of about 4 to 5 minutes per question, not more than that. But of course, as I mentioned, in the beginning, don't get fixated with how much time per question you're spending. Okay, rather than that, just try and get the conceptual clarity. So chase conceptual clarity over speed, very, very crucial. A lot of students think that, oh, I should be able to solve a question in 2 minutes because in CAT I have 22 questions, I have 40 minutes. But that's not going to happen on day one. It will happen eventually. But if I'm just starting my preparation or I'm in the middle of my preparation, I will not be able to do questions in 2 minutes, 3 minutes. I might end up taking 4 minutes. But is that okay? Yes, that's still fine. That's not going to be a problem for anybody. Then very important, as I mentioned in the beginning as well, maintaining your own formula book is very crucial. You have to have that. Don't rely on somebody else's book. And it may seem like a lot of effort, but that effort will be more beneficial than doing anything else. So please do that. It will really help you. And finally, with Quant, a lot of students, I would say about 50% of the CAT takers may have this concern that I'm not good at Quant, right? And they may say that I have not done math for a very long time and things like that. But ultimately, you have signed up for this particular thing. You just need to study enough to crack the test. You don't have to love mathematics. So this is something that I tell my students every time, that you don't have to love math. I don't expect you to love mathematics, especially if you don't like it. But you do enough so that you'll be able to crack the test. And that is why having that growth mindset is required. So rather than saying I am bad at maths, if I just flip that and I say I can get better at mathematics, or I need to get better at mathematics, that's a better way to phrase it rather than saying, oh, I am bad at mathematics, right? So don't do that. So have a growth mindset that anybody and everybody can get better at no matter what you're planning to study. So tomorrow, I'm pretty sure if I give you a topic that you've previously not seen, let's say medicine, for example, if you take enough interest, you will be able to study it. So there's not rocket science. Okay, now let's talk about, so we have spoken about the 3 individual sections. We'll now talk about different types of students. So let's say you're somebody who is taking CAT for the very first time, or you're a college student. Then what are the things to keep in mind when you're preparing? First is treating all sections with equal importance. So just because you like something doesn't mean that you keep doing that, or if you don't like something means you avoid, right? So please don't do that. Those are common mistakes that happen. Treat all sections with equal importance. So if you don't know what you're good at, you start with say almost equal distribution in terms of effort. Say I'll do about 90 minutes of Quant, 90 minutes of verbal, 90 minutes of DLR. Don't worry about, again, it's not necessary that you define it in the form of time duration. In fact, it's better if you define it in the form of number of questions. So I'm saying, okay, let me do 20 questions of Quant today. Doesn't matter how much time I take. Or let me do 2 RCs plus 10 VA questions. Or let me do 4 sets of DLR. That's a better way to plan your targets rather than setting a time-bound target in the beginning, that is. So treat all sections with equal importance in the beginning, and gradually you can change. You can decide the time allocation or effort allocation. From a priority perspective, your college grades are very important because that is going to stay on your record forever. And from an IIM admission perspective as well, it is very important. So don't take your college grades lightly. That has to be your first priority. After that, CAT preparation, and after that, everything else. So what other extracurricular activities, committees, clubs, whatever you may be doing, hobbies, interests, everything. All of that comes after the first 2, right? Which is your college exams, grades, maintaining grades there, and then CAT preparation. Then better to opt for a structured prep program. So if you're somebody who's preparing for the CAT for the very first time, I think going for a classroom or a live online program is a very safe bet, and it's a very logical thing to do because there are too many things. See, I'm not saying everybody needs it. What I'm trying to say is that it's just a better option to consider because everything is given to you on a platter that, okay, this is the structured flow to preparation. This is what you're supposed to do in April, May, June, July, August, and so on. This is when you should take your mock test. This is when you should do master classes. This is when to do past CAT papers. So that sort of guidance and mentoring is what you need, and that is the reason why most students for their first attempt will go for a classroom or a live online program, or should go for it. Now, rule number 1 is be in sync with classes. A lot of students think that joining classroom program or any live online program or any program for that matter is going to solve their problem. No, it's not like that. Whenever you sign up for something, you have to show up. It's like joining a gym. I mean, just because I joined a gym doesn't mean that I'm going to be healthy and develop muscles. So I'll have to go there, right? I'll have to do something. And again, just going there is not going to be sufficient. All my practices that I follow around that will also have to be in sync with it. So if I go to the gym every day, but then I come out and have a pack of potato chips, it's not going to work. So similarly, joining classes is not going to be enough. You also have to do effort to be in sync with classes. But then obviously life will happen, and let's say there is, for whatever reason, there's a backlog. Then what do? You put in more effort. So if today there was a topic which was going to be covered in my class and I was not able to attend it, what do? I try and watch. So in my MS, for example, we have something called the class exercise recap videos, which means if you have missed a particular topic, you can watch it. Or if it is happening in some other batch, I can just go and attend it there. Yeah, so do all of these things to cover it up. So that's the second rule, that if you miss, if there's a backlog, just put in extra effort and try to cover it up and try to be on track. And finally, seek help when you need it, right? Because when you're taking CAT for the very first time, it's a lot to handle, right? It's a lot to manage, especially with respect to your preparation, your mocks, your past CAT papers, your applications, where to apply, where not to apply, and all of that, which tests to take. So there's so much happening around. It's better that you go for like a structured prep, as I mentioned, and ask more questions there. So get your doubts clarified, because everybody, when they're taking CAT for the very first time, this is bound to happen. Then what about students who are taking second or third attempt? Now, when you're taking second or third attempt, you have matured as an individual. I mean, you're in a way, you are more experienced. You have taken CAT, whether it went well or it didn't go well, that's a separate story. But you are more mature on that front. You know what CAT is. So you'll have to figure out what went wrong in your first or second attempt, right? Especially for those of you who are in the third attempt, what went wrong in your first and second attempt? Is it prep strategy? Is it on the day of the CAT something went wrong, or run up to CAT something went wrong, and stuff like that? You have to fix problems first, and that involves ignored topics. And all of us have that, whether we may or may not accept it, but all of us have that, right? So there will be topics that we have ignored. We don't like those topics, so we have not done them. That is the first thing to fix. So any topic that I may not have done for my first or second attempt, just focus on them first. Weak areas, consistently, let's say you are underperforming in DILR, eventually that turned out to be something that stopped you from getting an IM call. So now DILR is the first thing that you should be fixing. Now, better to opt for a structured prep, definitely. But then, do you need classroom? That is a call that you need to take, because you might be able to survive with, let's say, a live online or a self-learning program as well. So it depends as to how much you scored and what's the gap from your target score. So let's say you already got, let's say, a 98 plus percentile. Now you know that how to crack CAT, how to go to a 99 plus. The missing thing is maybe, let's say, test series. In that case, go for a test series. But if you, let's say, are thinking of a 99, you're at 70, definitely the gap is pretty huge. So in that case, going for a classroom or a live online program will be a better bet. Now, for a second or a third attempt, the strategy changes a little bit. When you're taking CAT for the very first time, what you do is you study from the books and then you go and take mocks. But when you're taking your second or third attempt, you take more mocks and then you go to books, which means that you take a mock and you see where the gaps are, which topics you could not solve questions from, where you got questions wrong, and so on. And then go back to your books, study that topic again, and then take the next mock. So that's a approach shift that happens when you're taking as a repeat taker. Easy problems, a lot of students come back and say, oh, I've solved this material. So they will come back and say, okay, the class exercise of IMS, I have already solved it. Now what do I do? My question is, if you already solved it, and if I ask you a question, can you tell me orally how to solve it? Right? So all the easy problems, if you're a second or a third time taker, all easy problems you should be able to solve as much as possible in your head. And that's the skill to develop. So I'll spend more time on improving my ability to solve questions faster by saving steps. And can I do that? That's the core skill to work on. And it's okay to solve the same material again. A lot of students have this misconception that if I solve the same material again, it's not going to help me. But no, it's not like that. Same material, you can try and solve it without pen paper by reducing the steps that you take and so on and so forth. So there is enough to be derived from the same material and especially if you don't know how to solve it. So you may think that I know it, but if I ask you a question randomly and you're not able to answer it, it just means that you haven't done it well. So you can do the same material again, it's not going to be a problem. But look at it with a fresh lens that, hey, I'm able to solve this question using standard method, but can I do allegation and then solve the question? Or can I use options and solve the question? So that's that time that you spend thinking about a problem deeply is going to give you more gains. All right, now coming to working professionals. So working professionals first study on the weekdays. There is always a temptation that I'm going to study on the weekends, but most of you will be enrolled, let's say, in a weekend program as well. And if you have classes as well on the weekend, studying additionally might be a bit difficult. So you will have to create opportunity during the week. So weekdays as well, 1 to 2 hours, whatever you can find. While traveling, you can read. When you come home, just dedicate some hours for prep in the morning or evening. That's up to you. But having that is very crucial. Maybe 1 day break is still okay. But then on the weekend, Saturday, Sunday, you put in more effort to cover things up. Quitting your job is not the solution. So if you're planning to quit your job to prepare, I would say that you rethink that decision. And if you must quit after July, you can think about it, but not prior to that. Firstly, why? The reason is it's good to have a sense of urgency, right? So see, when you're working somewhere, you know that, okay, I'm going to be not available for CAT prep for about 8 to 10 hours. I'm going to sleep for, let's say, 6 to 8 hours. So I have a limited time for CAT and it's just approaching. So there is a sense of urgency. The other thing is also there is a backup available. So if you are working somewhere, you know that even if CAT does not go well, there is a backup, which means that that pressure is taken off of your mind, right? So that's why it's better to have that, better to be working rather than being somebody who is just preparing for the CAT. Though for somebody who has just graduated, let's say you graduated in 26, you're going to take CAT 26. In that case, even if you're not working, it's still okay because it's fine to justify, it will be easy to do that. But if you're, let's say, somebody who has graduated in a particular year and you're going to take the CAT in the next year, then obviously you should be working in the time in between. Now, if you end up quitting, right, the panel knows that 8 hours is what you will sleep for. Maximum 8 hours is what you will study for. You'll still have 8 hours. So find something worth doing in those 8 hours, and that's very important in addition to prep, because otherwise it becomes difficult to justify. Now, who should join which program? So couple of things on that front, right? So firstly, who should join Classroom? See, Classroom has its advantages. It gives you everything in a very structured manner. So you don't have to really struggle and think, okay, when I should be doing what. Now, for first or second attempt, I think it's good to go for a Classroom because you get everything super organized for you. You get mentorship, doubt solving support, application support, and all of those things. Who should go for a live online is if you don't have access to a quality classroom wherever you are. So let's say you're located in a city where you don't have very good options when it comes to CAT coaching, or they are, let's say, really far from you. Maybe every day you'll have to travel, let's say, 1.5 2 hours to get there. In that case, you should go for a live online program. For live online, it gives you convenience to study from home wherever you want, whenever you want. Flexibility to watch recordings. You can always watch it. If, let's say, for whatever reasons you miss a particular class, again recommended to first or second attempt kind of students. There is a self-learning program as well, and who should go for such programs is students who are self-motivated and they have fair bit of discipline as well. Because see, when you have a program and nobody is watching you, nobody is doing any form of intervention, it's very easy to lose track and lose momentum in that case. So if you're somebody who generally struggles with motivation and discipline, I think SLP is not for you. But if you're somebody who knows that, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do, I have created a plan for myself and I'm going to stick to it, I know what I'm doing, in that case, go for a self-learning program. So this is not for students who struggle with discipline for sure. If you need awareness of what to do and what not to do, then it's better that you don't go for this. Okay, but if you have that awareness, then you can sign up for SLP. So good for somebody who's like a second or a third attempt at CAT. And finally, who should go for test series? Test series is for those who know that, okay, this is what CAT is. I have maybe taken CAT once or twice. I know exactly what I'm supposed to do. I just need more and more practice questions. Okay, I don't need help with concepts or theory or whatever those things. I can do that on my own. If you have that sort of confidence, then go for test series. So for repeat takers, generally test series is definitely a recommended course of action. For first timers, we don't recommend that you go only for a test series because there could be a bit of a struggle on that front, right? So that is what the test series, who should be looking at test series. All right, so that brings us to like the final slide and of this particular video. Some frequently asked questions and queries regarding CAT preparation. First is, should I study all the sections every day? Now the answer is no. You don't have to do that. What you should instead be doing is think of a week that at least during the week I should be touching all the subjects. So I should do something for Quant, something for DLR, something for VRC in the week. I can have, it's not wrong to do this. So it's not wrong to say, okay, I'm going to do every section every day. That's also okay. That's a fair strategy to have, but it's not necessary. So don't take that pressure and say, okay, I have to study Quant today, I have to study DLR as well, and I have to study VRC. Not like that. In a week, yes, you'll have to touch individual subjects. So you can do, let's say, Monday you do Quant, Tuesday you're doing only VRC, or Wednesday you're doing DLR plus VRC, Thursday you're doing entirely Quant. That is completely okay. Okay, so don't think that I have to do all sections every single day. Then how much time per day? So this is a possibly the most frequently asked question about CAT preparation, but there is no answer to this question. So how much time per day depends entirely on what is available to you firstly, and how much you need to put in, right? So I may say that, okay, I have, let's say, the first SIMCAT coming up. In that case, I have not done module 1. I have to revise, or I want to do it for the very first time. Maybe I'll do 3 hours, 4 hours every day. But if that is not happening, I've started my preparation very early. I can manage with even 1 hour of preparation every day. So it depends. Rather than, as I said, defining targets in the form of how much time I'm going to study for, better to call it in the form of how many questions I'm going to solve. And that may take more or less time. So today, if I've decided that, okay, I'm going to do QA 1.2 exercise, doesn't matter how much time it takes, I'm just going to finish it off. That's a better way to have targets rather than saying 30 minutes I'm going to study Quant, because 30 minutes of Quant is honestly not useful, because the first 5 minutes it will take you to get into the zone. The last 5 minutes you're thinking, oh, when the 30 minutes are going to get over. So it's pointless to have that sort of target. Then frequently heard thing, I am unable to solve quickly. My point is, you'll not be able to solve faster unless you've done a lot of questions. So you'll not be able to run if you are not able to walk at this point of time. So don't think of people who are solving questions at very high pace, right? Or people who are going to just look at problems and say, okay, fine, this is the answer. I'm not worried about them. Rather, I should think, okay, today I've learned a particular topic. Now, how do I get faster at this? So do more and more problems. When you sit with problems, try to think, okay, how to optimize the solution. Those are the things that you should focus on, rather than thinking, oh, I'm not able to solve quickly at this point of time, because that picture will change. See, all of you think of the skills that you learned over your life, right? Maybe, let's say, swimming, for example. So when you started swimming for the very first time, there was a lot of struggle. But after you showed up, let's say maybe 5th or the 10th time, you got better at it. So the same is true for anything, whether it is VRC, DLR, or QA. Then I don't find time. Okay, so a lot of people keep complaining. I would say optimize, reduce irrelevant or the activities that you pursue or indulge in which are not value adding. You can simply remove them. See, some bit of sacrifices will be required, whether you are taking CAT as a first time student or repeat taker. Some sacrifices will be required if you really think you want to crack it. I'm not saying you have to isolate yourself from everything, but then maybe reducing the time that you're spending on those things and spending that time on preparation is what you will have to do. Then I can't focus. I find CAT preparation boring. Now, I hope you willingly have signed up for this and nobody is forcing you to do CAT preparation. See, you will have to develop some interest. And if you can't focus, start with maybe 15 minute, 20 minute, 30 minute, right? So don't try to create a schedule which is impossible for you to handle. And in the initial days itself, if you think that you are doing too much and you suddenly lose interest because of that, it's not going to be useful. So instead of having a very big target, think of, okay, can I study for say 30 minutes today? Can I then make it 45? Can I make it 1 hour after that? So start small rather than trying to take up too much on your plate. Then if you find CAT prep boring, figure out how you can make it fun, right? So for example, doing a test. Now you can always say that, hey, I'm going to take these many tests today, and after that I'm going to watch, say, one episode of, I don't know, the Big Bang Theory, for example. So you can create that mechanism which will help you initially to get interested in it. But after that, it will not help you to retain it for a longer period of time. Then you will need to be self-motivated. So look for that intrinsic motivation that, okay, hey, why am I doing this in the first place? And that should take you, or that should help you to develop more focus and get interested in the CAT preparation. See, a lot of students have seen this, that they think, okay, what's the point of learning a time speed distance problem, right? But you knowingly or unknowingly use time speed distance concepts, right? That, let's say you're going to office, there is some play of time speed distance that is happening in your head, whether you like it or not, or whether you know it or you don't. So don't reject topics. Even when you do ratios, when you do profit loss discount, they are going to have application in the business world. I mean, you are going to be a manager, and if you can't calculate profit margin, for example, in your head, it is going to be a problem. So all of those things that you learn have some sort of impact, right? It's a transferable skill. So that is why don't look at it from a very short-term perspective. Then I'm not an engineer, not from an IIT, odds are against me. I'm a no, whatever, non-engineer, dropped maths and all those other things, right? See, I would say only one thing, that you need one seat. So don't worry about what's the competition, how many seats are there in the college, how many seats are open, category seats, this, that, engineer, non-engineer, diversity points. All of those things are not in your control. So you worry about only one seat because that is what you need. And that is all of these things, right? These are just distractions from preparation. The core thing is to sit and prepare. And once you take the CAT, then whatever happens, right? So I'm not going to be worried about all of these other parameters till I take the CAT. And then finally, people who keep saying, I can't get better, right? Now, I would say it's all about mindset. And everybody who is watching this video, you're preparing for the CAT, all of us will start at some level. Some will be starting at a level which is higher than you. Maybe they've done, let's say, some form of apti prep in their life, JEE preparation or some competitive exam preparation. So they're starting at a slightly higher level. So think of it as all of you are climbing a mountain. So somebody is already ahead of you. And then there will be somebody who is not even at a height where you are, right? People maybe who haven't done maths for a very long time, who haven't done English and whatever. So there will be people who are ahead of you. There will be people who are behind you. Nothing is stopping anybody, whether people who are ahead of you, or people who are at your level, or people who are below you, from reaching the top. So it will ultimately matter as to how well you prepare, how serious you are about your preparation, and the effort that you put in. So have that growth mindset throughout this journey when it comes to preparation, and no matter what happens after that, you'll still be happy. So from maybe a 50 percentile, you may jump to 90 percentile or a 95 or a 99. We don't know at this point of time. But if you give it your best in terms of your preparation, at least you'll not be disappointed on that front. Okay, so that's what I want all of you to think about. I hope I've covered the how to prepare for CAT. Of course, there's too much to talk about, and I don't want to just go on and on. So we're going to stop here. But in the series, we'll focus more a lot on some of the other parameters. Like, for example, I didn't cover SIMCATs enough. So we're going to have episodes where we just talk about that aspect. So stay tuned for the upcoming videos. I hope this has helped you. Wish all of you all the best, and I'll see you very soon. Bye. Take care.